Imagine driving alone on a quiet, moonlit road far from the safety of your home. The air is still, the trees cast eerie shadows, and your only company is the hum of your car engine. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a woman appears, dressed in white, standing on the side of the road. Would you stop? Would you risk everything to find out why she's there? This is the chilling story of Marcus, a young man whose life took a haunting turn on that fateful night. Stay with me because what happens next might just make you question every choice you've ever made on a dark road.
Marcus, a young guy of 22 years, was born and raised in this small, close-knit town. He often raced his car on the winding roads that went through dense woods and rolling plain. He was a very good driver. Marcus saw driving as more than just a skill. It was a way to avoid the growing pressure of family expectations and be free. Like many people in the town, his parents wanted a stable, decent life. They wanted a job in the area, a quiet marriage, and deep roots in their small town. But Marcus wanted more than that. He wanted to live an exciting life outside of his small town. Marcus stormed out of the house one night after a horrible fight with his parents about his future. He grabbed his car keys and ran away. The weight of their sadness hit him like the sticky summer air. He had to have some room and time to breathe. He started the engine of his old but reliable car and drove off, leaving behind the friendly hum of his neighborhood and the glow of the streetlight. The moon was high in the clear night sky, and its silver light lit up the rolling countryside. The road in front of them went on forever and was surrounded by tall pines and oaks whose branches grew together to make a natural cave. The hum of cicadas could be heard far away as the cool night air rushed through his open window. The steady sound of the wheels rolling on the sidewalk calmed him down for a while, making his chest feel better. But when Marcus got to a very empty stretch of road, he saw a person standing on the shoulder. The sight of a woman in a long white dress, her shape lit up by the faint moonlight, was shocking. It felt strange and almost dreamlike to be around her. Marcus slowed down and rolled down his window because he couldn't hold back his interest. He called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" His voice was shaky, but it was full of real worry. The woman turned around to face him, and her face looked eerie and calm. Her dark hair fell down her back, and her skin was so pale it looked like it was glowing. But the sadness in her eyes seemed to go all the way to Marcus's soul. "I need to find my son," she said in a voice that was almost whisper. Marcus felt like he had been hit by a bomb when she spoke. You could feel her pain, which came from her like cold wave. He offered to give her a ride right away. "Get in," he said. "We'll find him together," and his voice was calmer than he felt. The air inside the car seemed to get cooler as she sat down in the passenger seat. Marcus looked at her but didn't know what to say. Her quiet was too much for him to bear. He asked her about her son, like what his name was and where he might have gone. But her answers were hazy and jumbled, like she didn't know the answer. Every once in a while, she would look out the window at something that Marcus couldn't see. If you were in Marcus's position, driving down a foggy, endless road with a stranger who only gives cryptic answers, what would you do? Would you try to get more information? Or would you keep driving in silence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. At first, the drive was a way to get away, but it quickly became scary. The road that I used to drive on seemed to go on forever, and the tall trees on either side looked like they were closing in on me. It started to fog up in a strange way, making the moonlight look funny and making shadows that looked like they were dancing across the road. A prickling in the back of Marcus's neck made him grip the driving wheel tighter. He couldn't explain it. It was very quiet until he spoke up. "Are we close to your house?" The woman looked at him, but her face couldn't be read. "This is my body. It's there," she said in a strange way, her voice shaking. "In the small grave next to the road." Marcus got a chill from what she said. He looked at her again, and this time he noticed something slightly off about her. The way her dress moved even though there wasn't any wind, and the way her skin seemed to glow in the dim light. When he realized she wasn't what she seemed to be, his heart sank. She let out a sharp scream that reverberated through the car. It was such a raw, painful sound that Marcus almost lost control of the wheel. As the world outside the windows curved and blurred, the air inside the car got thick and suffocating. No matter which way Marcus turned, the road seemed to bend and go around and around itself. "Listen to me," she yelled, her voice a mix of pleading and order. "They took my son away from me. I'm stuck here because of my sadness, and now you're a part of my story." The thought that Marcus was no longer in charge of the car, the situation, or even his own life made his heart race. The woman's sadness wrapped around him like a live thing and drew him deeper into her sad story. It became clear that this wasn't a normal meeting. A part of something old and ongoing, he was involved. He finally got out, "Why me?" Even though his voice was shaking. "What do you need from me?" The woman's sad face got softer, but it didn't change. "I don't want you to go through what I have, but you have to feel my pain and tell my story. Then I will be at peace." Marcus couldn't ignore the weight of what she said. She began to tell him her story, and he felt like he had been taken there, not physically, but mentally. She talked about her life, her son, and the day he disappeared without a sign. She talked about the many nights she spent looking for him, how hopeless she felt, and the moment she gave up in the darkness of her sadness, binding her spirit to this lonely stretch of road forever. The thick fog finally lifted as she spoke, making the road ahead clear again. The woman started to lose her shape, and her features turned into a soft glow. "Promise me," she said, but it was hard to hear her. "Promise me you'll tell them," she said. "They should know." Marcus answered, "I promise." His voice was calm, even though tears were running down his face. She then went away, leaving Marcus alone on the now quiet road. The first rays of sunlight were breaking through the trees as dawn began to break. Marcus drove home with a sad heart but more determination than ever. He didn't waste any time when he got to town. He told the story of the woman to the people in the town at a diner. It was her pain, her loss, and her plea for us to remember that he talked about. People in the town listened with faces that showed fear, awe, and understanding. Marcus's words brought the story to life, turning it from a ghost story into a story about how love and sadness can last forever. After that day, the dried-up body story wasn't just a bad thing that was told in the dark anymore. It became a sign of kindness and a warning to remember the stories of those who came before us and to try to understand when we are hurt. Marcus kept his word, and in doing so, he found a reason for living that was much bigger than himself. When Marcus got back to the small town, there was a huge void of sound that seemed louder than any words could ever be. He felt the promise he made to the woman heavy on his shoulder, always reminding him of how sad she was and how quickly she needed help. He told the people of the town about her story, but he still had the feeling that his job wasn't done. The rolling hills and thick forests that surrounding the area made it seem like her pain was still in the air. Even though weeks had passed, the thought of that terrible night would not go away. Her sad face and the deep, eerie sound of her voice kept playing over and over in his mind, reminding him of her pain every time it was quiet. Things went on as usual in the town, with its normal rhythms and routine, but Marcus felt like something was off. The meeting made him more aware of the stories that people didn't talk about, the silent pain that went on too often without being noticed. He began to see the roads he had driven 1,000 times, the quiet forests that stretched to the horizon, and the faces of people he had known since he was a kid in a new way. He felt like the world itself was telling him to look and listen more closely. Everything had a new meaning to it. Marcus couldn't get away from the part of the road where he first met her. Her story kept pulling him back. It turned into a place for him to think and wait, where he could sit and try to put together the pieces of her story. He was thinking a lot about the small grave she had talked about. He had to go back to it, not because he was interested in death, but because he needed to understand. She longed for peace so badly, and maybe there was something else she could find that would give her that. As soon as he got there, the air felt different, as if the land knew how important his plans were. The trees stood tall and still, and as dusk fell, their branches cast long shadows. Marcus got down on his knees next to the shaky ground and brushed away leaves and other things that were on the ground. He felt a strange silence come over him. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but just being there made him feel important, as if recognizing her pain were steps toward respecting her memory. Marcus's trips to the grave became part of a bigger plan over time. The man started to understand that the woman's story wasn't just her own. It was a reflection of all the stories that had been lost to time and were hidden in the cracks and corners of his community. He chose to do something after coming to this realization. He started talking to the older people in the town and asked them about the stories and legends they had heard as kids. What started out as a personal quest quickly turned into a group effort as people shared their knowledge and experience. This led to the discovery of many stories that had been forgotten for a long time. time. Marcus worked very hard to keep these stories alive because he knew they were more than just fun to read. They gave us a look into the lives and struggles of those who had come before us and reminded us that love, loss, and strength are things that all people go through. He carefully wrote down each story and then put them all together to make a bigger story that showed what the town and its people were like. As the project got bigger, the people in the town felt more connected. It helped them understand their shared past and honor the people whose lives had shaped their community through the story. Marcus felt a sense of meaning that he had never felt before as he worked on this project. He slowly lost the doubts and anger that had been bothering him. In their place, a quiet resolution to make sure that everyone's voice was heard began to take over. He kept working on it because the woman's story was important to him and helped him find his way. He thought about her and the promise he had made to her a lot. It made him feel better to know that what he was doing was helping to remember her. Marcus not only kept his word, but his hard work also changed how people in his community thought about their past. People used to think those stories were just folklore, but now they treasure them as part of their history and use them to remember how strong and kind people were. And by keeping these stories alive, Marcus healed not only the woman's spirit but also himself and everyone in the town. He didn't feel scared on the road where he had met her for the first time. It turned into a sign of change and a warning that even the worst times can lead to fresh starts. Marcus kept going down those winding roads, not to get away, but to remember the trip that had brought him there. The moonlight lit his way, and the trees told him tales in the wind. He carried her story with him, making sure no one would forget it. By doing that, he showed that kindness and understanding can heal even the deepest wounds and turn pain into a lasting memory of hope. What happened to Marcus was terrifying, but this is just one of the many stories hidden on the road. In the next video, you'll discover another shocking experience that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Click now and continue this journey of mystery.